Welcome, everybody. If we'll take our seats. Uh, Good afternoon. I am Dr. Gary Moreno. I'm the director of the Latin American Cultural Center here at Austin Community College. Thank you for joining us this this Saturday afternoon for exploring mural art and community. We have a distinguished panel here of very knowledgeable people. We have Fidencio Duran, a muralist that is very well known here in the Austin area. We also have Carmen Rangel, another muralist in the Austin area, very well known. And I'm actually very proud to have them both here because they both have murals in this building. If you haven't seen it, Fidencio has a mural up by the stairwell. So if you haven't seen that, please go check it out. Carmen has a mural up at El Centro. So please check it out too before you go. We also have Monica Maldonado here. She is the founder and CEO of Más Cultura. And so she works curating a lot of shows and exhibits around town. And you may have probably seen one of her shows. And we have Silvia Orozco, the co-founder and the executive director of Mexi Arte Museum as well. Where's Silvia? So, sorry. Angel Quesada, so sorry. Angel Quesada here is with us as well, also a muralist, and he's going to give us a presentation of his work. So should we get started, Fidencio? Yeah, Fidencio's gonna start with a presentation, and then I think Silvia and Angel, and then we'll have a roundtable discussion afterwards.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay, great. Thank you for being here. I'm Fidencio Duran. I am an artist. Okay, sorry. I'm an artist. I'm a painter and a muralist, and I have been living in Austin since 1980. I'm a product of Caldwell County. I was born in Lockhart, Texas, and went to Lockhart High School. And my family history is based out of Maxwell, Texas, Maxwell and Martindale, Texas, from approximately the 1920s to the present. But I'm happy to be here with you today and to share the experience that Angel Quesada and myself and Silvia Orozco from Mexicarte and the rest of the city of Austin are having. The focus of our Art in Public Places project is to complement the efforts by Mexicarte to erect and construct a new building downtown in the same location as the original site of the Mexicarte Museum, and also the establishment of the Fifth Street Mexican American Heritage Corridor, which is of great significance to the history of the original or the beginnings of the Mexican American community in downtown Austin, and it's also relevant to its extension into East Austin via 7th Street and other directions heading towards the east, based out of the park, Republic Square, which is one of the main historic parks established by the Republic of Texas. What we are trying to do today is to engage the public in whatever means you feel comfortable. Obviously, as an appreciator or a viewer, you are participating in effect. But we're asking that if you have time and if you have the inclination that you respond to a very brief questionnaire that we have devised, and you can do so in a variety of ways. You can access this QR code that takes you to a site where you can make comments starting today and on through the duration of this project. We are at the beginning of even thinking about design and content and directions, and so we do value this because in my experience, the reason that my murals, I think, have become relevant in Austin is because of my experience as a muralist with the Zaragoza community in 1996, and it had been building up to that in different ways. But I think that they informed me enough, and they were active enough and interested enough to let me know what it was that they valued about the history of their communities, of their community per se, and their neighborhood, and the people that in their view had been instrumental in having established that. So I have to thank them, and I mention them all the time because it really made it very clear to me that it's very important for a public art project to have the participation of the people on which it is partly based and who it's largely for, that will be living with it in their neighborhoods, and so that they can gain an appreciation for their own neighborhoods and for art itself. And so that is my motivation. And it was something that's actually started in Lockhart, Texas, when I did a mural for them in 1981 when I was an art student here at UT. And just the idea that they would actually want to have a mural in their town was kind of, I thought, very interesting. You know, I was 19 years old, and they came to me and said, we know that you're an artist, that you're a painter, and we know your family, and you've lived around here, and would you consider doing something that relates to Lockhart specifically in terms of history, which is of course evolving as we speak. People are studying things more and more all the time, and so it is a very dynamic field, I think, and so is art. So I thank you for being here. And Angel, would you like to say something briefly?
Thanks, Fidencio. Hi, everybody. This is really cool that you made time on your Saturday to be here. My name's Angel Quesada. I lived in Austin for about almost 10 years, and I've been in Houston for the past decade. And so Austin, it's a place, right? Like Houston is a place. I actually was born in Laredo, raised in Eagle Pass and Del Rio. So you think about place and what it means to have a place, to be in a place, and the history of a place, and that you're a part of a place and you identify with a place. So this is the very conversation that we're beginning here in this second AIPP engagement. So just like you, we don't know what the image is going to be like. It's very exciting. We're very different, but we also have a lot of similarities. So you're watching history unfold at an amazing site, Mexic-Arte Museum, which will soon, well, 2027, you'll see a whole new building with our art adorning it. And we're very excited about that possibility and all the steps to get there. But this is the first or second step in the process. So just so you know where you are in space and time, okay? So thank you. Yeah, you want to talk about our artwork? Okay, that's a little further down the PowerPoint. You got to go all the way down. Well, that's the government presentation. Maybe I'll if I can. Oh gosh, we got to go way down. There we go. Okay. All right. I guess since I'm first. So our work celebrates and documents the expanse of our ancestry from First Peoples to the present day. Uniting the past with the present, we project our hopes for the future. By honoring our collective history, we aim to create an indelible mark for future generations. So here's a little bit of my artwork. These pieces, the one on the top is in Houston. Both of these are in Houston. The top one is Árbol de Muerte, and it's getting cut down as sort of a comment on gentrification. It was getting to be too beautiful of a mural, and I said, is it okay if I cut down the tree? And the people who commissioned me were like, wow, that's okay, sure, we trust you. I said, trust the artists. So it came out like this, and it got a lot of attention, and it's still up, and it looks great. The one on the bottom was done for, the city has a program called Spark Parks, and they bring in free playgrounds to different schools, and this is at an Arabic immersion magnet school. So this was a very textured concrete, and the words around it are like to live, to learn, to laugh, to play, stuff that kids can get, if they speak Arabic especially. The top one is a mixture of mosaic with painting, and that is at the Legacy Community Health Building in Gulfton, or it's South Houston. And when I was doing this piece in 2019, people who were walking up, mostly immigrants, women and their children, were like, this looks like a museum. Is this a clinic? So I said, yes, ma'am, please come inside. The bottom one is Segundo Barrio, and that mural, that's where I live. So I decided to make where I live special in using my talents to bring together communities. Because really, like, if I'm gonna be a sports fan, I could use the metaphor of like Astros, yo, Astros versus Dodgers, down with the Dodgers, whatever. But and there's all this animosity between cities. Dallas hates Houston, Houston hates Austin, Austin hates everybody, but Austin doesn't care, and whatever. I don't buy into that stuff. But exactly. But the power of art to unite a community is what I'm trying to scratch the surface of. And so tomorrow, actually, going to Segundo Barrio, and I'm launching another mural unveiling. So right after this, I'm going home to do that. So the power of art in a place is really what we're all here for. And I appreciate that you all love art enough to make time to be here. And Fidencio, is now you're up because you got a couple slides.
Plus,
Yeah, down and forward.
okay. Most of my paintings are autobiographical in nature. They relate to small farming communities where I lived in Maxwell and Lockhart, but largely my personal paintings relate to my family's experiences as being tenant farmers in Central Texas, and mostly my grandparents' farm. My grandparents owned a small farm in Maxwell, Texas, and it was the focal point of our family. And during the weekends, we would always gather there. And I was, it was always a great place to be. It was always a warm place to be, and it was something that is very memorable to me. So when I started making paintings when I was in college, I specifically wanted to make paintings that I could relate to, that would be fun for me to make, that I would actually want to see them and actually have and treasure them. And so. I had kind of been working towards that and decided to focus on that in the classroom of an artist named Peter Saul, who was a very pop artist, very different from my work. But since we were the only ones in the studio, we actually related to each other very well, and we struck up I can't say a friendship, but he certainly supported me. And the one thing that I do remember him stressing was that, in his view, that for art to be significant, for art to be able to communicate, that there has to be some element of emotion in it, or that the artist has to feel emotion, some connection to what they're making. And I can only think that helps when the artist is actually working on it, so that they'll actually complete it and do it the best that they can if it's something of a personal nature. And so that's the approach that I've always taken, and much to my surprise, it actually impacted people. I was recognized by the Dallas Museum of Art when I was a junior in college, and it led to other opportunities. And people still remember my work, and they ask me what I'm working on next. And I've always been able to find other projects to work on, specifically murals, which I started doing when I was a student as well, and also as an artist in education, working throughout the state of Texas, working with students of various ages in different communities, developing community projects and subject matter and locations. And so all of those experiences really have come together in what I'm doing today and have been doing for the last 20 years or so. So I'm very relaxed to share it with you, and more than happy to explain any of these. The lower one is my most recent public art project in Austin at the Montopolis Recreation Center. And it, I think, is a great example of content that is specific to the history of Montopolis, the Recreation Center, and the nature of the community itself. And I think it's significant because, I think I'm very fortunate to be able to to display and to highlight and to feature stories about people that are typically not in the media in the forefront. They're not that evident in literature, in textbooks, and I always thought that that was something that I could contribute, that I could do to show from my point of view of other realities, other communities, and other people. Simply because I think that this country is great enough to be able to handle it, and that it's needed. The appreciation that's shown to me when I'm restoring my murals is always great, even though the subject matter is not specifically about the audience, but the audience feels something that I have somehow conveyed in the works, and so that to me is the greatest value. Is that it? Yeah, sure, Daniel. From Southwest Key, no, I don't have it in this presentation. Is there a question about it, or? Oh, well, yeah, I have a mural at the Southwest Key regional headquarters on Jane Lane. And I've recently been restoring a mural that I originally painted in 1991 along the hike and bike trail right behind what's now Mendes Recreation Center. That was part of a noise abatement project by Austin Energy when the Holly Street Power Plant was still in operation. And so in 91, it was originally painted myself and other artists that were actually selected by Felipe Garza and through Ponciano Morales III, the architect that designed the wall. And then I repainted it in '03, and it's lasted till this time. And then I've just refreshed it with some of the faces that were most exposed to the sunlight had faded, and so I've gone back and I've repainted them, and so it's an amazing feeling. I want to convey to you how amazing I feel to be here in front of you today and be able to talk about a mural that I painted in 1991 or even in 1981 in Lockhart, and to know that there's still people that remember it and that have documented it, and it's a wonderful thing, and I hope that my joy transcends, and that you go and distribute that farther on for me. But if there are no other questions, then I'm going to turn it over to Gary or to Sylvia.
Yes. Okay. Well, I want to thank Dr. Moreno and ACC for hosting this event and for doing this incredible event to support the artist, and also the City of Austin for supporting this project and making this project possible. And I want to recognize the artists, Fidencio Duran and Angel Quesada. Mexicarte Museum is so honored and proud that we will have these artists working on this major artwork for downtown Austin, and to reflect the history of the Mexican American people here in Austin. Oh, and I see Modesta. I want to recognize Modesta, who actually helped in the discovery of the Mexican American Fifth Street corridor, which I guess we'll thank you, Modesta, and we'll talk about that during the presentation. So thank you so much, and all of you, many of you I know, and I want to thank you for all your contributions all these years to the cultura, the culture here in Austin, because all of us have worked together to where we are today, and with each day and each effort, we're making it better for all the community. So thank you so much. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about Mexicarte Museum, but also how we became involved with the Fifth Street corridor, how that evolved, and where we are to this point. So Mexicarte Museum, and many of you have been part of it all these years, is dedicated to the enriching the community through education programs, exhibitions, collections, preservation, and interpretation of Mexican, Latino, and Latin American art and culture. And I guess I go here. Okay. Okay. Mexicarte Museum began in 1984. We incorporated in July, and the original building that we were located in was the Arts Warehouse. I know probably some of you remember. I don't know why, if it's destiny or a coincidence, but it is the same location as the Walker Aztec Chili Company. Can you believe that? We were located at 300 San Antonio. It was our original home. We had 300 square feet. And the Walker Aztec Chili Company, which was the employer of many of the Mexican-American people at the turn of the century, was in the same area, not the same building, but the same block, 310 San Antonio. I don't know if y'all have heard of the Aztec Chili Company, but it was because it was catty corner to Republic Square. The workers, they were mainly Mexican workers, and they say that a lot of the kids, their children, sometimes would wait for the parents or play in the park in the square that was in catty corner to Republic Square. That was catty corner to the Arts Warehouse. So we're donating our archives, about 400 boxes of organizational files, to the UT Nettie Lee Benson Latin American Collection. And in going through the files, I found this map of the Arts Warehouse, where it shows here on San Antonio Street, and you go through the entrance, number 3 was Mexicarte. It was 300 square feet. We were right in front of the cantina. And this is where very convenient. And so if you see, we got a $2,000 grant from the city of Austin to do the first Dia de los Muertos that we organized. And if you look at the amount of people that's in the hallway of the warehouse, and since 1984 we did the Lowrider Day of the Dead parade, and they actually drove in through that entrance into the warehouse. And at the other end was the gallery. They call it Gallery 300. And that was it's supposed to be a gallery, but it was always empty. And so as artists, space is the most incredible thing, and that, we believe that, we can fill those spaces. And so we asked if we could present the first Dia de los Muertos event there. And they said, well, what is a Dia de los Muertos? Because that was in 1984. And well, we said, well, it's kind of like a Mexican Halloween. And so they said, fine, we'll do that. And so we got a $2,000 grant from the city, and we organized the first Dia de los Muertos event. And what's interesting too is that we were going to paint a mural, because the rent was, I think, $300 a month or something like that. I can't really remember, but we said, we'll paint a mural, because we barely had any jobs, and we'll paint a mural on the front of the warehouse in exchange for the rent. Well, they never decided what design they wanted, and so we never paid rent. And and so that was one of the best deals we've ever done. We've done some better ones than that, though. So anyway, so that was where the Arts Warehouse was, and where Mexicarte was originally located. And then the second exhibition was Realidades Mexicanas, which showed some of the collection that we had that had been donated to us by the artists in Mexico, along with some other artwork here in Austin. What we didn't know, that catty corner to the Arts Warehouse was this square, and I think part of it was a park, kind of an empty lot, and it was kind of neglected. And there were these 2 beautiful trees, but we never really paid attention to that park, because all our efforts were, doing exhibitions and doing events, and kind of getting to know, the Austin and how to operate a nonprofit. But these are actually the auction oaks. This is the heart of Austin. This is where Austin started. Originally, as you know, the Capitol was built, and Ed Waller was brought in to lay out the city. There were 4 squares. What we know now is Woolridge Square, then the Republic Square, Brush Square, and there was one around where St. Mary's Church is. But under these oaks, which are more than 300 years old, lots were auctioned off. People could come and buy plots of land to build Austin. This was also, but with time, what happened was the Mexicans, well, first, way back where the Tonkawas and other indigenous people, that was even before, the Spanish, the Mexicans, anybody came. The Tonkawas and other indigenous communities were occupied this area. But with time, in the 19th century, the Mexican people started coming. The Spanish, of course, had come through here, and especially during the Revolution and pre-Revolution, there were people coming in. Especially when the railroad came, you have a lot of people coming through the railroad. So this is a little map that was done by Danny Camacho, and shows the beginnings of where the area that was called Mexico. And many celebrations were done here. The Cinco de Mayo, 16 Septiembre, other family events. And it had several names. It was called Mexico, Little Mexico, the Second Ward Park, Mexican Park, Chili Park, Mexican Square, Chili Square. And the Chili Square was because the Chili Company was the catty corner. And so then there was lots of, research. There was research being done about what kind of ethnic groups were, not a lot of research, but some research where the Mexicans were being located, and where they were settling. But eventually, as we know, in 1928, the city plan came to be, and they realized, well, this is prime property. It's downtown. There's lots of, activities going on. We don't really want these communities to develop anymore. And so the plan was done to move everybody out of downtown, the African American, the Black community, and the Mexican community. So the park kind of stayed abandoned for a time, and it wasn't until 1995 when the city council designated it as Republic Square. And Marta Cortera at that time also wrote a timeline about the Republic Square and a historical sketch about the Mexicans in Austin, because they were also developing the Plaza Saltillo project. And the Plaza Saltillo project, of course, with our sister city in Coahuila, is at the end of the Mexican-American corridor. The activities of the 16 Septiembre, the first that's recorded is in 1873, and in the Cinco de Mayo, 1886. So there weren't, after everybody was moved to the east side, there really weren't any activities until the early 2000s, when, under the leadership of Gloria Pennington, activities started to take place again at Republic Square. And in 2003, the state of Coahuila donated these statues of the father of Mexican independence, Father Hidalgo and Jose Morelos, in 2003. So we were at the warehouse about 3.5 years, and then it was basically a project of the Watson and Casey Company, who wanted to I guess get favoritism, become more friendly with the city council, who was about to make a decision on the city hall. And so they created the Arts Warehouse, which was fashioned after the torpedo factory in Virginia, where you have artists doing their work and people can come and see their artists doing the work. And so the Arts Warehouse were basically little stalls where different artists would come. So then it closed in 87, and we had to look for a place, and we were able to rent our building on 5th and Congress for $2,000 a month. It was 3.5 stories, and we had a contract for a rental contract for 5 years, and after that we were month to month. Eventually the land was bought up and by Cousins Properties, and they wanted to build a tall building, the Frostbank Tower. We were able to negotiate with the city for the city to buy the building for us in exchange for services. So we wrote the exhibition. I call it was called Exhibit B, where we traded services. Services mean valued at, the building was valued at 750,000. It was a service contract for 50 years. Each year we would do $15,000 of service that includes free Sundays, tours for the kids, classes in the schools, and also an exhibition, Totally Cool, Totally Art, which is every year. I think we're on our 20th something year. But when we got the bond, they said, okay, that doesn't count anymore. You got to start all over. So it's okay, because that is what we do. We are here to provide services for the community. So we've been in the Mexicarte building since 1988. And little by little, you know, when we got a little money, we'd fix a wall, we'd fix a window, we'd paint a little bit. I think Angel was the first one who painted a mural outside Mexicarte. So, and so it's interesting because one day, I don't know if it was because we went to go visit Fidencio, we went to Maxwell, and there we saw the National Hispanic Institute, and we went in and we met Gloria and I forget her husband's name. Yes, Ernesto, and we saw an exhibition of historical photographs, and I said, oh, how interesting, and of people from Austin. And so, well, we were interested in you know, further doing some research about that. So wrote another little grant, and we got a grant from Humanities Texas to do this. I don't know, can you believe this? It was started at 2, and it did not end till 7. It was the whole day, and it was, before the internet, and people stayed all that time. At 2 o'clock, my sister at that time was living with Pio and I, and she was a PhD candidate. And I said, well, you're a historian and you know a lot, and this is easy for you. Why don't you can you write a history of the Mexican Americans in Austin? And she said, really? You think it's easy? I said, yes, please. We need that history so that we can develop this program. And so she did. And she did the presentation the first session we had. And she's again asking for young or emerging historians or people that have energy to go, because we need a book. She talks about a book needs to be developed about the history. There's all these, you know, articles and some history here and there, but we need to really develop the history, a book that research about the Mexican Americans in Austin. And we had all these different people. We did a lot of research. This was an exhibition. We still have the photographs, and eventually they will be donated to the History Center. Some were borrowed from the History Center. Some we took ourselves. We went and visited the families of Robert Donnelly, Jesse Segovia, a lot of different first families, Mac Martinez, the Galindos. Anyway, so we ended the whole evening, the whole day, with a presentation of early Mexican American music, Manuel Limon, and then and Manuel Donnelly, and we had a trio that they were all in their 80s at that time, and they played for the reception. These are some of the photographs that we showed at that time, including Crescencio Segovia, who started the first tortilleria in that area of downtown. And then you have the Comité Patriótico, who would organize Cinco de Mayo celebrations, also 16 de septiembre. And you see the portrait of Ignacio Zaragoza in the back, and I think that's Father Hidalgo that's kind of faded out. But in the center, is Ignacio Arriaga. I think he is the great grandfather of Andrew Gonzalez, who's on the school board, and he has also recently, well, not his family recovered a lot of the archives that they have, that his family had, because they had a house on 8th Street. Here's the Limon trio that played at our reception. And it was, okay, so then in 2000, so we continued to do research and gathering materials when we could. But in 2009, Gloria Spitia did this exhibition called the Mexican American Trailblazers, honoring some of our leaders here in Austin. which was a very important exhibition and research that she did at the History Center. And so, and then our mural, we continued to do commission artists to do murals. This is Federico Archuleta that did this mural. And in 2010, the National Preservation Conference came to Austin, and they had several day conference, and they called and asked if I would do one of those when they break up in groups to do a tour of the Mexican Americans in Austin. I said, well, let me see if I can put that together. And so we started at the History Center, then we went to Republic Square, and then to the church, Our Lady of Guadalupe Church, Parque Zaragoza, and then we went to Plaza Saltillo. And so it was kind of interesting where we started to see the locations of the different things. And all of a sudden, and because of the research that well, not all of a sudden, but with the research that my sister had done, the research we had done on those with the families, we started plotting out where everything was located. And all of a sudden, they all started somehow having a relationship with Fifth Street. And of course, if you keep going west, across Lamar, you also have Treaty Oak. And Treaty Oak is on Fifth and Baylor. Fifth and Baylor, and then you have Plaza Saltillo that's on the east side. And so we said, oh, there's a connection, and it's a corridor, and well, it's the Mexican American Fifth Street corridor, and we came up with that name. And then we started. This is important because when people come to Austin, even today, when you go to San Antonio, Mexican history is everywhere. There's no question or doubt. But when you come to Austin and you walk downtown, it's kind of like, well, did this start in the 60s with the hippies and, Armadillo headquarters and 6th Street? There's not a history. And so it's very important. History is very important. And I mean, y'all know, and so that we have a foundation that we're connected. We have to feel that we're connected to this town because the city is our home, and then all the contributions that we have made over all these years. And so we started with this map and, kind of showing it around and talking to different people in the city. And then trying to, our Day of the Dead, would start at the Plaza Saltillo, and then we would come from the east, moving west, and we would always say, like, when we were under I-35, everybody would scream. We didn't ask them to scream, but they would scream and and they would make these, so the spirits of the Mexicanos were coming back downtown. And our mural program continued, and then it was until 2011, after talking to the city council, that we were able to get a resolution that recognized the Mexican American Fifth Street corridor. And then also at the county level, we also got a resolution. Okay, but a resolution is a resolution. It's up on paper, right? But there isn't anything to back it up. So after that, then we tried several times writing grants to NEA for our town, asking the city to do a master plan, to put wayfinding signage so that, to recognize this area more. But nothing really there has not been an investment, because you cannot develop an area, district, history, you cannot teach without support. You need support, and if the city recognizes that they need to also invest in it. And so again, in 2012, we did another exhibit at the History Center, and this one was called Austin's Mexico, a Forgotten Downtown Neighborhood. And because Modesta is my great friend, and I don't know if you remember, but I don't remember exactly how we started talking about this and how but one day she came with her, and Modesta's incredible, and then she's an archivist, and she keeps and preserves and saves all this history. And I think, and she can tell us in a little bit about how, how she came up with her research, but through her research, I don't know, you want to tell us now, is that would be a good time?
Yeah, when I went to St. Ed, can you hear me? Okay. I did an interview with my father-in-law, Jose's father, Jose Francisco Trevino, and it was the barrio that was located downtown that Wasiba was explaining, because he used to live there. It was 10 pages long. I didn't even know that the Chalmers projects that I grew up in were the first projects built in the USA. And the first residents eran Americanos. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that. One of my cousins who married my cousin from Gonzales, she said, Modesta, we were the first ones that moved in. And they told us that they were going to check us to make sure everything was left clean. So these were some of the stories that I didn't even know. But the thing of it is, he told me that the way he described it with tres barrios, and he mentioned that even Guadalupe Church was right north of the Republic Square. And they even had the escuela there. I said, really? He said, yeah. And then the way he described some of the barrios, it was surrounded by a fence, two of the barrios. There was only one opening, one door. If they wanted water, they had to go to the pump. And then if they wanted to use, the toilet, they had to share one. And it kind of reminded me of my cousin that lived in Gonzales. So, I mean, he gave me so much information that I was just amazed. It was 10 pages long, and my husband helped me make the music, the map. But Sylvia, thank God, they redid the map like a historical. And the other thing before I forget, he was even, I didn't even know this. He was the main chef at St. Edward's University. This was before I even was a student there. And they allowed him to live in the quarters, when they had their first child. So I thought that was amazing también. And I gotta tell you, one of my, because I was a teacher 27 years at Sanchez Elementary, and that was the only brand new school in East Austin. And I told some of my students, you need to interview your grandmother, because one of them lived on 2nd Street, and they owned the Rock House, and her husband's mother had 3 lots there. So that's just like the transition.
Thank you. So one day she came, Modesta, she came with her term paper that she had done with Dr. Quirarte, and a little map on a little notebook paper that was just sketched out, that had the whole map, had all the different the different stores and businesses and homes. And we went over it one by one, and see, this is a portrait of her father-in-law, and where he was born, and he remembered where everything was located. All the tortillerias, all the blacksmith, all the cantinas, the ice house, where everybody lived, the churches. And then with the knowledge that she had saved all these years, we did this map with the Austin History Center. And it has a key, and it has everything numbered and everything named that was part of the exhibit. And you can actually go on our website under collections and press the little buttons, and you can read more about the different structures and sites and businesses. And then there's 4 different interviews that we did with different people that lived or knew about that area. But it's an incredible discovery, and it's because of Modesta that we were able to save this and recover all this information. So thank you, Modesta, for your work on this, and your family. And so we continue, because we continue to discover information, but we do not, we as a community do not have a comprehensive history of the Mexican Americans in Austin. So we are working with the city now. We are doing a community engagement project also about the 5th Street corridor, because we are trying to designate it as a district. As a district, what that means is that once you are designated as a district by the state, then you are eligible for other funding that you can then do programs along that corridor. And so with time, we're getting people more involved. We're able to do that. And so one idea that we came up with was to do this luncheon, and we did it last year. It was a great success, and we created the Loteria of the Fifth Street corridor that has all these different landmarks or things, historical things that we did. And this year we have a new edition where we're doing the rivers. I don't know if y'all know that the rivers going north and south in Austin that cross Fifth Street are the rivers. They're all rivers. Brazos, Guadalupe, all of them are rivers. Medina, all of them are different rivers. And so we're going to do we're doing another edition this year. But anyway, so we continue to work on the project of the Fifth Street corridor. And we continue to discover more history, like Mr. Mac Martinez. I don't know if y'all remember him. He's from the family of Mats El Rancho. Well, he was my friend, and he would come to Mexicarte, and he would put a little quarter on the table, and I'd bring him a soda water. And he would tell me stories about Austin. And he would tell me how he and his father would sell popcorn and peanuts outside the theater on Congress. Because I think that the Anglo community used the theater, but afterwards, I guess for late night movies and things, they would allow the Mexicans to use it. And so this is his little cart this is a picture of him and his father outside of the Paramount and Majestic Theater. And then Mr. Martinez was actually also an artist, and he would make these little plaster Paris sculptures, and he would bring them to me, and then I'd go to his house, and he would assemble them. And in this past picture that I showed, this is at the governor's mansion when the Bushes, George Bush was governor. Mrs. Bush asked me if I could help decorate the governor's home for Christmas. They had a Mexican theme, and I invited several artists to we placed their art on the first floor of the governor's mansion. And this is Mr. Mac Martinez, one of his proudest moments. He says that where he had his art exhibited. And today they're also part of our collection at the Mexicarte Museum, some of his artworks. So the changarito, that tradition continues today in Austin, where you sell things on a cart. In fact, we opened that last night, and it'll be up till August 25th, where we continue to sell, artists sell on 5th Street, 5th and Congress, art, and they get 100% of their sales. So we're continuing those traditions. And we're continuing the traditions of the murals, and in a few years, you'll see the development of the mural that would be designed by Fidencio and Angel. And we hope that it will showcase or display and teach the history of the Mexican Americans here in Austin, and all the contributions that we have made to this development of this wonderful city. So I think that's probably what I have. So and you probably have seen these signs. These signs all of a sudden went up, and I think that was in 2021 or so, 22. No, this is today. What it is today. I think they've been up for maybe 2 years, but at the end of Kathy Tobo's term, this was the last thing that she did because she really believed in the project. And it wasn't really designed. I think it was designed internally, but with time, we're going to get better wayfinding signage. So, but that it is a start because people see them and they recognize them. And so again, as I mentioned, we're doing the Fifth Street Corridor Community Engagement Project. And that's what we have. So thank you so much.
All right, guys, thank you. We got a little bit of a late start. So what we've set up in the back is we have some barbecue there. So as we're kind of setting up our panelists here in the front, you guys are more than welcome to go down there and grab some barbecue. And if I can ask the panelists to come up front. Could we those of you guys in the back, just go ahead and grab your food. All right. So we're just gonna kind of open it up here for any kind of questions that you all have for the panelist. I think I want to get started. So since I have the mic. All right. Monica, as the founder and CEO of Mas Cultura, you know, you've put up a lot of murals in the neighborhood. I think you just have to press it down until it turns green.
Testing, one,
There
two,
you-
three.
So what has been your experience in putting up some of these murals, how they've been received by the community, some of the difficulties perhaps that you came across putting up some of these murals? Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me. I'm Monica, the founder of Mas Cultura. Also, a big advocate for cultural arts. And I sit on the Arts Commission. So all of this, honestly, it was so informative because even though we're doing the work, it's a reminder that there is still more to do. And that it's a continuing journey of learning, becoming more and more educated so that we can really advocate and impact our communities, right? And so when I think about murals, I definitely think that it's a very natural and organic way for us to create a place of belonging for people in our neighborhoods. And if we go back and we look, you know, back centuries, many centuries ago, art and murals were being done in caves, right? So there's a whole history behind murals. But as far as my involvement with murals, I think the murals that I've created really come from them being a voice for social activism and for justice. And one of the murals that I wanted to speak about really quickly was we did the Vanessa Guillen mural up on the hill in Dove Springs. And if you go into neighborhoods, underserved neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods, a lot of times you won't see a lot of murals, and a lot of that has to do with brick and mortar. So as brown people, we don't own the buildings. So it's very, very difficult to get wall space. And the murals that are at Mexi Arte, they're so powerful in how they take up space in downtown Austin. So this project and everything that's going to be done at Mexi Arte, it is truly how we demand space and we are seen in the city. There is no other downtown gallery that represents the Mexican American culture like Mexi Arte. Murals can have a big impact. And I think it's a way that we can see ourselves, we can story tell, we can be a voice. The list for me goes on and on about the importance of murals. So I don't know if that answered your question, Gary, but I will say it is very difficult to get walls for murals. And I appreciate the murals that I have been able to do over the past few years.
Thank you. And any questions from the audience here? I think it's being recorded. We're recording.
Oh, I see. Thank you. Monica, I wanted to ask you, so are you working with the private sector, like the people that own the buildings? Are they being cooperative in, like, let's say there's a tenant who is Latino or Mexican American or something like that, and they want to put up a mural. I guess what I'm asking is, like, do you have any experience with that, or is there any positive response from the private sector, the owners of the buildings, especially to preserve if there's any mural?
I think in the city of Austin, I think there is still some hesitation, and that still is part of the struggle. Even when the owner of a brick and mortar is Latino, is that there is resistance, right? And there's a concern. And I'll use the Vanessa Guillen one as an example, which was a great cause, you know, where we wanted to bring community together. We wanted to make a mural that was a memorial mural. And the owner of the building, after the mural was there for a few days, started getting phone calls. And at first, the phone calls were just about the concern of what the mural represented, because she was in her military uniform. People were bringing candles. So then there was a fire hazard concern. So he went into panic mode, and he actually wanted us to take the mural down after it being up for less than 2 weeks. And and so sometimes owners will give you the wall space and then eventually decide that they don't want that type of attention, that it's too much, it's attracting too much traffic. And those are just things you don't think about. So yes, securing the walls, even if it's from the private sector, is a challenge. And then of course from the public sector, like with City of Austin Art in Public Places, Carmen and I worked on an installation at the Southeast Library. And also a few months after having that installation up, there were people in the neighborhood calling, opposing that piece of art be there. So public art, has its own battles. We actually did have to take the piece down last year.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Brenda Olmos. I have lived in Austin about 15 years, and I'm the daughter of Mexican immigrants. So I really can appreciate your work and the work that you've done to gather the history and put it all together for people. And I think Monica may have answered my question already, but I respect and I appreciate the focus on history, but I wonder if maybe the artists or the others envision a plan for facing the present, the migrant crisis, the things happening at the border, a lot of the people that end up here in Austin after having gone through something like that. Yeah, I think about how it's important to look back, but there are a lot of things in our present that are not in the eyes of the public, right? And only those of us who are invested in those news really consume them. So just wanted to hear from maybe the artists in particular.
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, I think it's a very good point, and I certainly am always attuned to the news, and I think we all are. I don't think we can help it but be so these days. And no, I do intend to integrate what is happening today to what has happened in the past, because unfortunately it seems very similar to what has happened in the past. It's a continuing story of immigration from Mexico, and the relationship between Texas and Mexico culturally and politically that goes back almost 200 years. And so, well, yeah, even longer than that, I think it's up to the individual artists as to how they integrate those experiences into the work. My father immigrated from Mexico when he was 4 years old after the Mexican Revolution, and he told us everything that he could remember about that experience, and so it's ingrained in my head. And so as an artist, I wait for the moments when that information that I have direct relation to, when I can integrate that, and in my own personal way as an artist. But absolutely, I mean that is a continuing story of the hypocrisy and the dichotomy of American culture, in that we love various cultures, we absorb them and integrate them as quickly as we can, but when it seems to actually but then there's points where, like the mural that Monica was working on about Miss Guillen, that for different reasons, it draws too much attention, or or politically, Hispanics are just as varied as any other group, and so there are many opposing voices, or I would say it can be very uncomfortable. I agree. But no, that is never out of my reach as an artist, but I have to wait and see how can I present these things so that they're palatable to a degree, and at the same time enlightening. And I think that is a very difficult thing for anybody to do, not only as an artist, but if you think about social conversations and even conversations within your own family, about how do you broach these subjects, and how do you do these things with, in a productive way. So, but no, we know everything that's happening down there, and it's getting worse and worse. And I couldn't say my wife knows how we yell at the television, and with the news that's going on, and just the destructive nature, the very destructive nature of our long-lasting relationship between the two countries, culturally, amongst all people. And unfortunately, the people that are in charge of the state and other states, they want to sweep that all under the rug and think that, no, that's not what we are. Well, we are. That is what we are. And, you know, like even back to the days of, from the days of Cabeza de Vaca, that walked through, you know, from New Orleans basically all the way down to Mexico City. It's still the same story. It's about space and race. And if as much as you want to deny it, it's still happening. And it's not because we want it to happen. It's unfortunately because certain people and certain politicians, I think, use it to their own advantage to separate people. You know, the melting pot did not start in New York City. The melting pot started in Mexico. It started with the Spanish and all the native groups and all the Africans that they brought over for 200 years. And so that is the history of the North. That is the history of Western Hemisphere culture. And unfortunately, I see that the people that are in the way or that they want to slow it down or take it back, you can't take it back. You can't reverse the clock. It's already here. Look at the people, the faces in this room alone. And so I think that they're going to have to reach some kind of point where they realize it, that it's detrimental to everybody to start penalizing people for stepping over a border, for giving them the police the right to arrest people as soon as they step on somebody else's property. You know, it's only one of your 10,000 acres that you own anyway. So who are they actually hurting? It's unfortunate, but all I can say is, you know, become politically active. But as artists, I have to think about those things. You know, I have to think about those things because they are important, and so I have to find the appropriate way to be able to make it resonate with people so much that they won't forget it.
Well, I won't be speak at length because I think you covered a lot of bases there. But I don't think there's any one art piece that will solve all those questions. But it's a dialogue. It's a dialogue with ourselves as artists. We have to think about how the power of art can connect communities, build bridges, and establish relationships, cultural relationships, by sharing and being open, sharing our tacos. You know what I mean? Like making the masa and teaching people how to make the tortillas. You know, I've had many murals destroyed in my day. I've probably done close to 100 murals, and I've probably maybe 30, 40 of them are left. And the transient aspect of, say, street art or whatever, and the longevity of, say, a mural by Fidencio. There's these different schools of how people approach a mural. So we're looking for longevity. We're looking for something that is answering a lot of questions of like, what is this place? Why does it dare to exist? Who are these brown faces making these noises? So we want to make a harmonious sound as a chorus. And that's kind of our goal in the mural. You wanna say
Yeah. Kind of like going off of what he was saying, a lot of the art that talks about those kind of issues they're hard to look at. They make people uncomfortable. So it's very rare for artists to get commissioned for stuff like that. And so a lot of that kind of stuff I feel like is more unsanctioned art. So more like, you know, political activism art that is probably temporary. So artists might be going on the street and putting something up that's talking about those issues. And unfortunately, those pieces, they don't last, they don't stay up long. But I think depending on where they're put, they get a lot of traffic. So it does have an impact and a lot of people see it. I just think that, you know, being able to make those issues, like Fidencio was saying, like palpable to a larger audience is just so difficult. And, you know, you see a lot of art like that happening near like border towns. And I think that they have a larger impact sometimes because people photograph them and then they're shared on the internet. So they may not actually like live in the public space for very long, but they live out there in the world and on the internet and they're shared. So they do have an impact. It's just so hard to talk about those issues, put it in a way that people are receptive to it. And also you get a lot of backlash. There's people who might not like a piece, the art might get tagged. And that makes it really difficult if it's on a building for the owner to want to continue to let artists, you know, voice their opinions or how they're feeling. And I think it's really important for art to not only talk about the past, but to talk about the present and be hopeful about the future as well.
That being said, I think Austin is a very unique community. I've lived here since since 1980, and I think most Austinites are very, very accepting, and they're generally more culture. They're more interested in various cultures. You're typically a little bit younger and everything. But there was about 20 years ago or more, there was actually different murals that were they were whitewashed. They were painted over. There was actually nobody found out who it actually was, but they were called the something bomber. And so they would basically go and throw a bucket of gray paint over images that from what I gather, what was related to me was that these people were not so much concerned that it was about another country, but that the imagery was considered to be what do you call it? Not Christian. There's a word for it. Okay. Pagan imagery, because there was, which is goes back to the history of Christianity versus paganism, and it happened in all cultures, but that was their main I guess objection, was that here was images that were celebrating pagan cultures from the past, and things that the people that practiced human sacrifice and all these other horrible things that of course happen in other cultures throughout the world. In fact, London, England, probably one of the bloodiest places historically in the world. But those were that's what I gather about those people that had those kinds of objections to specific images. But I think in general, from my experience, if when people see other people that are human beings doing what they do, that they typically do relate to it. They will relate to it. It may not be in a real obvious way, but it's very difficult, to ignore that. And so I think that is the strength, to me, of representational art versus abstraction. Abstraction is great. It has its purposes, but it doesn't do it cannot do what representational, figurative, narrative work can do.
I disagree, but still, I think that because we are both versed in different schools, I think it's going to make the work stronger. I've gotten yelled at painting colors. People thought I was doing a gay mural, and they yelled at me to stop. Can you believe that? So you just don't know how someone's going to look at your art and interpret it. So there's that.
Any other questions out here? Oh.
Angela, I had a question over your tree mural. It said, yo necesito trabajo. And I was thinking if it like reflected to like Mexican work ethic or something like that. Yeah. Okay.
So basically, that building was called the Morales Radio Hall, and Morales was one of the first families in the East End, and they had KLVL, which was the first Latino radio station in Houston. So it was housed out of there. And Yo Necesito Trabajo was a program that they had. So anybody could come who needed work, and they would wait in the lobby, and there would be, yo necesito trabajo, se necesita un trabajador en este, and they would come, musicians would come and play on the art, or people would call the radio station and say, I need some people to lay bricks. Necesita trabajo, aquí tenemos. And then they would it would be a thing. So I incorporated that into the mural. Thanks for your question.
This question is for Sylvia. So if people have information that might be helpful, historical information, or maybe want to help you when it comes to, say, moving the artwork, or in the future when you have to, I assume you're going to have to take everything out of Mexicarte that's there now, since the building is being destroyed. How can people help? Can we help do that as volunteers?
I don't know, nobody's ever asked me that. Um, probably like, I think people can help in different ways. We'll probably have, when we get to that point, we'll have on our website, like, how you can help, how you can contribute, how you can get involved. I think that would probably be the best answer right now. I think there'll be all kind of ways that people can help. But, yeah, just if for information, so the facade will stay. So that will stay to, because it's on Congress Avenue and part of the Congress Avenue Historical District. The rest of the building basically cannot stay because it's all wood and it has a lot of structural problems. And we're trying to build a building that later we can be accredited by the Association of Museums, Alliance of Museums. So that's why that needs to be rebuilt. But yeah, we'll just keep a watch for on our website, and we'll put all that up. But yeah, there'll be a place for everyone, and who wants to help or contribute or be a part of, because we're embarking on a major project for Austin. And yes, you can sign up. So yeah, thank you for that question.
And I would say it's not being destroyed. It's being restored, reclaimed. And I think that we need to keep speaking that, because even though they've received some money, the funding still needs to come, right? So I think saying we're reclaiming that building, restoring it, but definitely I don't see it as destroying it.
Right, and like we're trying to keep the windows. For example, the windows, we have the windows that have been there since it was built, and also the beams. There's incredible beams that are like I don't know how long it is, but all the width of the building, and they're like 2 to 3 inches thick. They're beautiful, and I think we're going to be creating bookshelves in our library with those cedar planks, and repurposing. Yeah.
I had a comment. It has to do with trying to choose maybe subject matter on whatever you're wanting to show. As the other side, as a collector that tried to present a collection that was outside maybe the mainstream, I focused on artists of color, women artists, feminists. And so that was the only way that I could move forward. And in that process, then I would have parties at my regular home in Austin. And one of the artists that I had was, you may know him, his name is Malachi Montoya. And his art is pretty much in your face. The work that I bought was an image of a gentleman from Mexico trying to come over, probably a farm worker, and he was wrapped up in barbed wire, black and white image. The guy's like that, wrapped in barbed wire. And I noticed some people at my party, and they said, "What's that up there for?" And I went, "What do you mean?" They said, "Why did you hang that? What is that?" And from that, I decided that you have to, part of the process is you end up having to make people uncomfortable. They may never understand. That's not your job, okay? Because you can't make somebody understand what they don't want to or don't want to take the time to. But if you don't show what the truth is for your truth, then you've never gone anywhere and you can't affect a change. So you have to take the chance to present the truth that people will take the time to understand it, but they may never. But you've got to go for the truth. That's all I wanted to say.
Appreciate your comments. And the truth is, a slippery subject in some ways, because how do you get somebody to eat that castor syrup unless you put some sugar in it or something? Sometimes you have to kind of like wiggle your way into an understanding and meet them halfway. But I appreciate what you said. Yeah.
Hi, I'm not sure if any of y'all can answer this, but I was just curious as far as to like the reconstruction of the Mexicarte Museum and as far as the Mexican American corridor goes, if y'all know anything about like maybe a focus as to like um I guess allowing uh, Latin American artists to put up murals down up there around that area, or if there's really any push or focus for kind of doing more for the Latino community within that corridor, other than just posting up a sign that says this used to be ours. Because I think that's really important. Because I've seen those signs up there, and I find them kind of confusing because it's, in a way like a reclamation of what was ours, but now it's just kind of a piecemeal thing. Like, here's some kind of recognition, so y'all can maybe shut up. So
We got
I
a
want to know
volunteer
about
here.
that.
Go ahead.
Okay, I think that's the intention of this project, the Mexican American Heritage, not corridor, but district, to involve everyone all the different businesses, business owners and business operators on the Fifth Street corridor, and develop it into a district where we can, uh, you know, possibly get funding so that there can be money for more murals or sculptures. And, over the years, we have applied to the NEA, to the city for different projects for that, benches or markers or murals along the corridor, but none of that has been funded over these years. And so it has to do with funding and also raising community awareness of what can be done and how art can beautify. And so to create a district that would bring tourism, that would bring economic development to that whole area. So I think that's the intention, to do that. And so, it's like we've been taking, not we, but the city, baby steps, because all of this, it costs money. And plus, it's not our street, right? It's not we do not own the corridor. It belongs to the city and to the private developers, everybody who owns property along the corridor. So what we have to raise the consciousness and the awareness of all of these businesses. Oh yeah, the Metamura will continue, and in addition to the Fidencios and Angel's mural. But if you notice, there are murals all over town now. I mean, way back, like in the 80s, 70s, there weren't any murals anywhere.
But you should definitely volunteer.
I would say that the truth, the reality is that it all really comes down to those opportunities that you're asking about, because really you're saying, is there an opportunity for there to be more Latino art through this corridor besides a sign and besides this project, right? And what it really boils down is to participation and us coming together. So even this room being as full as it is already speaks to that we want this, we need this. And as that participation continues and increases, that is really where we establish ourselves as a underrepresented group that deserves and wants more representation through that corridor. But that only happens through participation. And Sylvia is absolutely correct. There's not a lot of funding. It's up to us to advocate and ask for that funding. And it kind of circles back to what I mentioned at the beginning. We just don't own those buildings. And that's the hard part. So when you go to LA or you go to San Francisco and you see these buildings with these amazing murals, a lot of those buildings are owned by still people, in those neighborhoods. So of course they're invested in making sure that their neighborhood is represented through that art. So it is going to be an uphill battle. We're not going to see murals all along that corridor. As of right now, but that can't change, and it can through participation.
So we were doing some canvassing last week to try to raise awareness about the Fifth Street corridor, because we're having a community engagement event for the stakeholders, for the owners and occupants around the Fifth Street corridor, actually Tuesday. And then we'll be having another one, where the community is also, everybody's invited. But walking down the east side of the Fifth Street corridor, there's a mural, I think, that was sponsored by the MAC and the Caminos project. Is that the name of that was the teacher? I know it was Raul Valdez because I saw his style, but it is there. It's very beautiful. And the whole wall is Saltillo tile. And then on top, they put a large mural that was done by the students. So that is on the Fifth Street corridor. And then with a recent grant from the Arts Commission, Lori Renteria and the Friends of the MAC are sponsoring a mural at the Plaza Saltillo from artists from Saltillo. And then there'll be one at Mexicarte by the same artist that's going to be inaugurated at the end of April, so that we are connecting the corridor from east and west with those two murals. So things are happening, not as fast as we would like, but they are happening.
Thank you. This is a very enlightening conversation. And on that, Sylvia, you correct me if I'm mistaken on this, but you mentioned about tagging. And mural art is not just Mexican and Mexico. Mural art goes all the way to prehistoric Coahuilteca. And actually, it's even before the Tancua. If any of you are familiar with the White Shaman Rock art mural, that's in West Texas, that's what I'm talking about. So I say that because there's a tradition in our cultura, and I consider myself a Chicano, because Chicanismo indicates that you're not just Mexican American, but you're indigenous, and all of us share that no matter where we are. So there's a tradition of that. And Sylvia, maybe you could tell people about what I'm trying to get at is that tagging, right? And graffiti art. Graffiti art, people were being arrested in Austin for graffiti art years ago. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Mexicarte turned that around. If you're on Pleasant Valley, there's that the tower, the transmission tower, and under there am I correct? Wasn't that one of Mexicarte's projects?
That
No?
was my piece, and
That
I
was
got
yours.
arrested for that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And
Well,
that's why I left Austin. I'm like, hell with this. This ain't weird.
well, today there's still it's still there, and there's still
It's still
art there.
tagged. Yeah.
And so what I'm actually getting at is, where's the interface, or is there any interface between the graffiti artists and you guys who are putting up sanctioned murals?
My mural at the hike and bike trail behind this recreation center. Over the years, there has been some tagging. There has been. It seemed like a lot of the tagging, like in that collection of murals, occurred on the murals that had faded, and they had not been restored. In fact, there's a young journalist named Emiliano Gomez, who works for the Statesman. He's been working on an article about the Holly Street murals. But nonetheless, what I was getting at was that over the years, there has been a little bit of tagging on my work, but it was never, because when I repainted I repainted it so that it would last as long as possible. And so, but anyway, my point is, I do find it to be an interesting interaction with the audience when somebody does, and in this case, they were tagging it, but they weren't defacing things. In my view, they wanted to be part of it, and respectfully. And in fact, there was a wall that has now been removed, a wooden wall beside it, and there was actually somebody that was going around town, and they were finding locations, I guess, that they liked, and they would do their own artwork, and it was an abstract kind of reminded me of Australian Aboriginal art to a degree, but I found that as a compliment. And most specifically, a compliment from kids, because I could tell that there were some little kids that came in, and they started drawing on the mural. And in fact, one of them, there's a scene where there's a boy with a yo-yo, and he's at a little party, he's playing with his yo-yo, and so somebody went and put a little goatee on, put a little goatee on the kid's chin, you know, and there was some writing here and there, but they would always find places where it would not distract from the rest of the image. So you know, I think at a certain point it does get out of hand, where the taggers can be just kind of doing it just for the sake of tagging. But in other instances, I think it is a form of audience participation, especially when it's younger people, kids, high school kids, younger kids, and they're going in and they might write something, you know, because I can relate to I can relate to that. Not that I ever did that to anybody's art, but a couple years ago, I was doing a project for the Greyhound bus company, and we painted a mural, and through Mexicarte, and there happened to be a convention in town of the national, some kind of Latino organization, and so they set us up, you know, to finish this mural. And sure enough, as soon as we got there, like these 3 or 4 kids, oh look, they're painting a mural. Let's go. And so they rushed towards thinking that, you know, this is going to be fun. Their mother said, well, you know, they're doing this as their work, and so let's be respectful and not disturb them. But nonetheless, in terms of tagging and graffiti tagging and stuff like that, I think a lot of it is, and I think that's partly, you know, not ours, but the lack of opportunities for people that are artistically inclined to do these things, even in the public schools. I mean, I worked as an artist in education in public schools throughout the state of Texas, from 1985 to about 2000. And that was always the issue of how do you create an atmosphere where you're advocating and allowing people, kids, students to be artists or to practice art, you know, without being judgmental and without putting such great restrictions on them, and to make it appealing to them, that it's okay to do these things. And so that's the way I see a lot of tagging. That when there's, but in other cases, you know, it's respectful. In other terms, it's not, and it depends on a lot. I think a lot of times on the actual physical state of the work itself, as to whether or not it's going to be abandoned, whether it seems to be abandoned, or is there somebody that's actually taking care of it.
So there's difference between tagging, there's difference between graffiti and street art and mural making. All those are different things. So tagging happens in 5 to 2 minutes, 5 seconds to 2 minutes. Graffiti, which is actually a designation placed on the doer by the law. Graffiti is actually an illegal action of defacing property, whatever, even if it's an amazing mural. I got charged with graffiti. So whatever, I haven't expunged it because it adds to my cred, whatever. But you know, sure. But the fact that we're creating this line in the sand, right? Where is the lack, right? Is it education, as Fidencio was saying? Because you can't just tag stuff, right? You kind of have to have some intentionality of it. A lot of the graffiti writers, I know a lot of graffiti writers around Texas, they tag for each other. So it's a game that they say, hey, look, I did it up there on that thing. That's super illegal. What did you do? And so it's a one-upsmanship, it's the brinksmanship in a way. But doing a mural work in a sanctioned space, that's a whole other deal. Thinking about the ways in which it's going to be seen, the context in which it's seen, what it is you want to bring to the artwork. These are something that are more deliberate. Whereas a graffiti work, you know, it's just this impulsive thing. Like you talk about cave art, like Lascaux or something like that, where it's an innate part of being human. We want to engage with art. We want to touch art in the museum, and then, no, don't touch it. You have to get kicked out of the museum. So this is the thing that about humans and art. And in that regard, you know, when we're talking about beauty or aesthetics, like that's an intangible subject in which, you know, oh, you think that's cool, but what's that saying? De tu arte, mi arte, prefiero mi arte. You know that one? So it's like, in English, it doesn't translate, but okay, basically, like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, basically, and so what I think is beautiful based on the golden ratio or whatever composition or harmonious color palette that I pick, tertiary, secondary palette, all that stuff. That's like higher level stuff. But when we get there, I always notice that a mural starts to come alive when bugs start showing up because they're like, oh, there's a flower, and they want to come and engage with it because of the resonance of the colors and the lines and things like that. So there's this an intangible thing that is a part of us all. And I think that that's the beauty of having a mural in a public setting. You're not in no offense, a museum that it's like you have to look at it in a little box and you can't get too close and you can't touch it. And, you know, in a mural setting, you're dealing with people walking by, the traffic, the environment, the materials, how it's being perceived. And there's a lot of different factors involved. Do you want to comment?
I like what you were saying about kind of like beyond the museum. So I think that like a lot of art in public spaces, it's, you know, beyond this idea that art is just on a canvas hanging on a wall, or that it's the only way for an artist to express themselves or for them to show, you know, their identity. So I think that the art in like public spaces or graffiti, that's, I mean, even if you don't like graffiti or tagging, I mean, I've had tons of my murals where I've had to go fix them because they got tagged. Sometimes it's just a small little thing. Sometimes it's something funny. Sometimes it's a big, you know, what do you, like specifically on my pieces, or I kind of like when it's a little bit creative where it somehow interacts with the piece. It almost feels like a collaboration at that point. But I think it's just really cool because it's, I mean, it's creating art that's accessible, even if it's not the type of art that you like. So I think that humans have a history of wanting to express themselves. We all have different identities and we have different ways of doing that. So, you know, starting off like with adornment or, you know, creating our spaces or on walls, your homes, your bodies, how you choose to express yourself. So I think that art is just a different way of doing that. We may not, you know, like tagging, or we may not like murals or street art. There's just different types and there's different ones for every single person. So that's what makes it really unique. And some things might be I don't know, like some people might just be drawn to different stuff. So there's a little bit for everyone is what I'm trying to say.
I think we've all been taggers.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you ever wrote like on the book cover your name, you were tagging.
And somebody asked me, have you, this man from East Austin, have you ever painted on a garage? And I said, yeah, I did one time. I painted on my father's garage, and he didn't appreciate it very much. But he left it there. He left it in place. And it was a figurative painting, you know, of a ballet dancer or something like that. Right? A woman figure. But he, you know, he kind of didn't like it, but he didn't erase it. He left it there, and just kind of, I guess because it was, you know, it was in a garage inside, and we lived, you know, in Maxwell. We just don't have a lot of neighbors nearby or anything like that. It was inside the garage. It was my studio. It's my space. You know, I want to make a painting. And anyway, I think I did it fairly creative. You know, it was like within a door frame and everything. But he just didn't. But he didn't erase it. You know. So I think that was the only time that I painted in a garage. But anyway. So.
All right. I think we've gone a few minutes over, unless if anybody has any. All right. Last question here. Sorry if I bring this issue off the point due to the absence of accommodation as we came here at our as a last minute decision. There are deaf Latinos, Latinas here in Austin that are far behind from being educated. There is one of the solutions to elevate education into deaf Latinos, Latinas. I have bridged within my creek called Blunt Creek in Travis. Oh, I have bridge within my creek called Blum Creek in Travis Heights districts. We will love to have your advocacy to bring deaf Latinos, Latinas through creating a murals onto this bridge. How may we proceed?
Monica.
Open right now.
The Nexus grant. is opening.
On Monroe Street on the east side.
Yeah, I think one of the things to keep in mind that part of the education and learning about murals is the cost of murals. I don't know that people know or understand how expensive murals are to create and all the liabilities that come with that. There is that's getting ready to open actually April 16th. Am I correct? The Nexus grant. So the Nexus grant is going to be $5,000 and you could apply for that grant. You don't have to be a nonprofit to apply for that grant. And that money could be used to create a mural if that's what you apply for.
All right. Thank you all for spending your Saturday with us. I really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoyed the barbecue. And would you put together a round of applause for our panelists, please? Yes, we have a couple things, an announcement. We have an announcement from Equity Based Preservation Plan. Do you guys want to come up and speak just for a second? And could we also lower the screen, please?
Hi, everyone. We are here from the city of Austin. We are working on our equity-based preservation plan. So historic places in Austin or places in Austin that mean a lot to you. If you want to come up to our table, provide your information to stay updated on the plan. We're building it based off of public involvement mostly or mainly. And so what you provide to us is what's going to be in the plan. So if you have the time to come over and talk to us, write a place that means a lot to you, we'll put it on the board and you can learn more about what we have in store. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone. Oh, could we?
Yeah, we're just going to put up the QR code in case you came late. You can scan the QR code. It'll help us a lot if you were to fill the questionnaire. We're going to pull it up right now. Yeah, the third one. Yeah, that's the one. So if you can just fill out the questionnaire, that'd be really helpful for us. And thanks for your time today. And if you want to follow me, I'm at Art Kung Fu.